Let me pull up the thingy so I can remember our intro that we do every time.
For like 3 years.
And what do you know what episode it is?
So this will be 14, I
remember.
believe. 14.
14?
Yeah.
I'll say 14.
Okay. What? Just go 13, 14, 15.
Yeah. That way you just know. Do you actually want me to do that? Hello, everybody. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 14 of the Attempt Adventure Podcast, a podcast all about travel, finding adventure every day, and seeking out little ways to make your life more interesting. From Longmont, Colorado, I'm your host, James Barrett, joined as always by my co-host,
Michael DeRogers in Bangkok, Thailand. Man, that intro was goofier than I thought it would be. It was hard for me to sit here.
Yeah, it's a little goofy. I had to hold in a laugh.
I may just leave that in for the comedy of it. I don't know.
13.
Anyway.
One of those.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Right, James. What's up?
Yeah. Oh, life. Drinking water.
Drinking my coffee. Birdie Black. So my go-to.
It's solid. Keeps you going.
Keeps me jazzed. Yeah, it's good. It's the low sugar one. So it's only 35 calories. But it's sweet enough that it's... Because I can drink black coffee, like if it's hot coffee, from a coffee machine, that's fine. But like iced black coffee, I just don't enjoy. Like an iced Americano. If it's iced, it just needs a little bit of sweetness, I think.
Yeah, for me, I can drink black coffee, but I don't make any, I don't lie and say I prefer it.
No.
And this is not I'm not insulting you black coffee lovers out there. Yeah. I just think that something hurt you at some point.
At the very least, I want some milk in it, something. Like,
if I go to a diner, I'll drink just sugar, but I never want just black coffee. I can, again, it's it's fine. Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners will love this riveting conversation.
This is great. Insulting anyone who drinks black coffee. That's what we're all about here. We like to stir the pot.
Alienate our listeners on all the important issues.
So what are we talking about today, Michael?
Well, James, today we are going to be having a returning guest, Mike Keene. He's back from his Greenland expedition, and he's here to tell us all about it. If you guys have not listened to the episode, I would recommend you guys to go back and listen to the episode that we had earlier this year. That was Season 3, Episode
8, 9, 10, 11,
5. Season 3, Episode 5. Mike Keene came on the show to talk about his upcoming expedition to Greenland. That is a expedition based around food and ecology and all sorts of interesting things. We'll go back and listen to the episode. He does fill us in on what it was all about in this episode as well.
Wonderful.
But do go back and listen to his first one, too, to kind of hear everything else that he's all about. Super good guy. Really excited to have him back on the show. When we had told him, when you get back, let us know, send us an email, and we'll have you back on the show. And he sure did.
And he did. Before we get into all that, we're just going to talk for a little bit. First, I want to make a few quick little announcements here. I want to shout out our Ko-fi page, kofi.com/attemptadventure. I think I never remember the Ko-fi page. There you can, if you feel like it, you can donate a little bit to us, buy us a coffee, a beer, whatever, really whatever, if you specify, I guess we'll try.
Yeah. Lemonade.
Within reason.
Soju.
If I can find it, I'll do it, I guess. But
broth.
Just a warm cup of why? What are we doing? We'd have to start video recording if we had weird. Now that could be a funny thing. That could be a funny thing.
Okay, you know what? We can do that, but they have to donate more than the price of buying that drink as well, because otherwise it defeats the purpose. So guys, let's say if you donate $5, I think we can get stuff for $5, right? Is that
sure?
At least one of us can. Okay, probably you guys, you know what? Here's the deal. You guys probably know how much. If you want us to drink something, you probably know how much it costs. Donate slightly more than that, and let us know, and we will drink it.
Yeah,
I guess.
The grosser it is, the more you got to donate. I'm sorry, it's not that kind of show. Anyway, Ko-fi page. Again, we're never going to lock anything behind paying. We're never going to hide anything for anybody. It's really just to show your support. And if you do like the show, tell your friends, tell your mom. Talk about us over Thanksgiving dinner. if you want, when everyone else is griping around, talking about.
Hey, I saw this good podcast the other day.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, if you got some of those family members, this is not going to be a fun Thanksgiving. So
when Uncle Ted starts spouting some crazy stuff, just mention us.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I am going home for Thanksgiving this year, but I'm very lucky that I don't have that kind of a family.
Same.
So, although we are going to have two very young children there, my two nephews, and that's going to be pure chaotic. But
yeah, my niece is going to be there, and but she's past the age where it's like, I love kids. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when they're really little, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but she's past that age where she's like a little person now.
Yeah, I think she's like 1 year older than my oldest nephew, so he's still in that crazy.
It's fun though.
Fun.
It's fun.
It's fun. They're both very, very fun.
Yeah, your parents have a great backyard. You can just sit and go run.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. Give us a shout out to your family. Tell Uncle Ted that we can change his mind on some things.
Yeah. Oh, he probably won't like our podcast that much.
No, probably not. So, okay, Michael, it's been a little bit since we've talked.
Yes.
It has been. Life is life again.
Yeah.
Michael, did you do anything new this week or since we last spoke?
Yeah. It's not super adventurous, but I did something new. I went to the Siam Carnival. It was sort of an outdoor kind of a carnival. I guess it was on Halloween night that we did it. It was sort of a food festival. It was set up under the Rama 8 bridge. And there were carnival rides. I did not do those. I don't really trust carnival rides in the US, much less in Thailand. So that was not my thing. But we did really enjoy getting to walk around under the bridge. It was a nice night. It was a little bit cooler here. Had some good snacks. I had a whole roasted quail, sesame quail.
Like fair food.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like Thai fair food, Thai carnival food. It's always fun.
I'm with you on the carnival rides though.
No, yeah. I mean,
if it's like a dedicated theme park, I'm in.
Yeah, Six Flags.
But like a traveling carnival, I'm not getting on those.
No, sir.
Like, hey, where's this bolt from?
These, do you know what this is? I know it's so tiny.
No, I can't really tell. It looks from back here, it looks like popcorn.
They are stir-fried squid egg.
That is not popcorn.
No.
But were they good?
Oh, they're good. I've had squid eggs before, actually. They are very good. They usually serve with sort of a spicy sauce. They're kind of chewy, kind of rubbery. Kind of like squid itself, but they're good.
I like squid.
This is just an egg. It's like a boiled egg on a stick, but then they grill it. So they actually they don't boil the egg, they grill it over charcoal, also dipped in spicy sauce. And then it's chicken skewered on lemongrass and then grilled over charcoal. So it takes on, as the lemongrass cooks, kind of steams it, so it gets that lemongrass flavor.
I do love lemongrass.
So that's what I did, James. That's what I've been up to. What about you? What have you been up to?
Oh boy, buddy. I will admit I will be the first one to spin the wheel of penalty because I didn't do anything.
Well, I'm excited, James, because of our new schedule, the way that we've been recording with these little gaps in between, and ideally bi-weekly, with little gaps here and there as well. We haven't had to spin the wheel of penalty yet this year at all. So I'm excited. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining us for the first time, we do have a challenge where we must do something new between each episode. And if we haven't had a new experience or an adventure of some sort, we have to spin the Wheel of Penalty, which is an actual wheel that I made on wheelrandom.com, where we plugged in a lot of adventurous activities, some bigger, some smaller. Let's just get right into it. Here we go. Spin that wheel. Ooh.
Oh boy.
James, you gotta go geocaching.
Oh boy.
It's free. You just get the app on your phone and you wander and find stuff. Okay. I've never done it.
No.
You're familiar with the concept, I'm sure. But
yes, I'm familiar with the concept.
You're gonna have to learn it and then let me know how it works.
All right. Okay. All right.
Okay, so that's going to be a little.
That's like tougher. One of those That's like one of those weird ones where it's like, all right.
Yeah. It might be James. Who knows?
It's something I have zero interest in ever trying.
That's the point of this challenge, right? Because a lot of these are things I wouldn't ever want to do, but maybe it's going to be a new experience. That's the point. So since it's going to be a little busy, and since we're actually recording 2 episodes today, why don't you try to have that done after Thanksgiving sometime? How about that?
Because we've got this week. Which
I genuinely think it's something you can do in 15 minutes in like a local park or neighborhood. I think that they're just.
I can just be done.
Make sure you film it. Just vlog it.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's just get right into the episode then, shall we? So again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mike Keene, adventurer, chef, explorer, scientist, homesteader extraordinaire. So Mike Keane, everybody, for another fantastic episode on the Attempted Venture Podcast. All right, Mike, welcome back to the show. So great to see you again. I have been so excited to hear your stories, hear about your adventure. How did it go? How was everything?
Yeah, it was great. Well, I'm trying to remember when we did that first podcast. Was it only a couple of weeks before I went out, I think, to Greenland?
I think it was.
Yeah, I headed out to Greenland back in April, end of April this year, 2023, intent on doing a solo paddle up the west coast, 3,000 kilometers, eating only an Inuit diet, so pretty much all sea mammal or fish. Also collecting seal poo as I went to send back to various scientific organizations to measure the microplastic present in the sea. I got back mid-July, so 95 days on the diet and about, I think it's just over 80 days paddling altogether. Wow. Yeah, it went really, really well. It was incredible. When I look back through the photos and stuff, I can't quite believe that it was me doing it. But yeah, it was brilliant. I had to I stopped about 600 kilometers shy of my original target because of just excessive sea ice. Yeah, I was kind of plagued by really weird weather patterns the whole way. It was my kayak got delayed actually being delivered to Greenland initially because the ship delivering it couldn't get through the sea ice, which is unheard of at that time of year.
Wow.
Because of the weather patterns being so screwy, the wind normally blows across the ice cap and moves all the sea ice away towards Canada and Newfoundland. But that didn't happen for an extra 4 weeks this year. It hasn't happened in living memory, which is kind of strange. I was kind of gutted a little bit to finish early, but the whole point of the expedition was to kind of raise awareness of climate change, weather patterns, the environment, and it ironically got cut a bit short exactly because of that reason, because we had problems with the ice in the south, and then right at the top the sea ice hadn't moved. Ships couldn't get through. It was impossible for me to get through on the kayak without going way out to sea, and which would be probably a bit too dangerous for me. The worst bit was about 300 k's straight across the ocean, which I wasn't geared up for at all, and in those conditions wouldn't be advisable. I wouldn't be here today, I don't think, talking to you. So the weather was the big one. On average it was about 10 degrees centigrade less than the seasonal average, so where I was expecting the sun just to start coming because it was going into summer, didn't see the sun for the first 49 days at all. So I had my solar charger on the back of the kayak, which was totally redundant. It was so cold. Many times all my water bladders froze up inside my tent as I was going. You wake up in the morning and you can't actually drink anything because everything's solid ice, so you have to go and try and find either fresh water that's running or use valuable fuel to melt snow or ice, which was kind of interesting. And then also getting the kayak landed and launching, it was nearly always over a kind of an ice shelf that it stops at the high tide level. So you're just crunching through ice and snow, and it's kind of brittle because of the seawater's hitting it, and you're just falling through falling through the ice, trying to drag a 50 or 60 kilo kayak with all the gear in up. So you can find a non-wet area to pitch your tent. I'm sure some of your readers know when you're in a kayak, everything just gets wet instantly. Unless it's like a mill pond, you just get soaking wet. And the sea temperature was about 0 degrees. The outside temperature was colder than that for first 2/3 of the actual expedition. So as soon as you stop, you just get super cold.
If I remember right, you said that there's not much wood, right? So it's not like you can just make a fire and warm up very easily. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's no trees in Greenland. There are a few in the south, but there's nothing that you could chop down or use for wood, and you wouldn't want to anyway because it's so barren. It's we've got to keep as much nature there as we can. I was in my mind, I kind of because I'm a chef, I was thinking, I'll collect some driftwood as I go. It will dry in the sun, and I'll be all chefy and cook up some nice meals.
Yeah,
but there was no driftwood, none to speak of. I only managed to find enough for one fire in total, and it was so cold. Everything becomes purely functional, which as a chef was really interesting on the food side, because like I said, I had these images of me cooking up a nice meal, sitting out in front of the tent, watching the whales go past. You're cold, so as soon as you get out of the kayak, you strip off all your gear. So half of the time I was just standing there butt naked, and then putting on my dry gear from inside the kayak. And as soon as you got that, you can breathe a little easier, and it's okay. I'm not going to get hypothermic now. And then cooking is you just want something warm and as fast as you can. So any kind of fish that I caught, only had the fishing rod out twice, and I caught fish. But you've got no interest in filleting it, taking the bones out. You just chop it up or mash it with a knife into the pan and cook it as quick as you can.
Right.
It's amazing how the environment changes your whole perspective on food, and it just becomes purely as much nutrients as you can, which is why a lot of the Inuit diet didn't involve cooking. It was either fermented or eaten raw or dried. So it's stuff that dried in the winter, often fermented because it took a good week for it to dry, even the smaller items. The fermentation is great because it effectively pre-digests your food for you. So you save energy, with your body not having to eat it, but also you save energy by not having to burn fuel and go through that. It's amazing how all these kind of quite obvious fat and results kind of click in your mind as you think about it. Oh yeah, of course. It makes total sense. The bacteria are digesting half the food for you, so you can instantly absorb it into your body instead of having to work and go through that whole energetic process to turn it into something your body can use. Really fascinating stuff.
Since food was one of your sort of main focuses on this adventure, what was the best meal you had, the worst meal you had, and the most memorable meal that you had during your time?
Oh wow. I don't think I had a worse meal actually, which is great, but I think the circumstances in the environment contributed to that.
Right. I guess when you're so hungry, you can eat anything, right?
yeah. And I was expending about 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day. But when I stopped and I had the tent up and I had my warm clothes on, I had a big meal. But it was pretty much all sea mammal, so seal, walrus, and whale. And 40% of the whole diet was fat. So great big chunks of blubber and skin were going in there, which as a kid I used to hate fat. I used to fastidiously cut off every bit of fat. But now I've gone totally the opposite way. I can't get enough of it, and the amount of energy I had at the end of the day of like 10 hours of kayaking it actually blew me away. I was not expecting that at all. I'd read numerous articles about Inuit people's eating huge amounts of fat in their diet, and it was astounding that me as a 54-year-old, I had a birthday out there at the end of doing a 50 kilometer kayak in freezing cold conditions and still feeling those high energy levels at the end was amazing. One of the most kind of iconic Greenlandic dishes is called matak, which is the skin and blubber of whale. Mostly eaten raw, but I found that cooking it makes the texture totally different from how the actual skin is quite tough. They call it Greenlandic chewing gum, but the blubber just inside the skin is super soft and creamy, and it's got a beautiful taste. But then when you cook it in great big chunks for about 20 minutes, it gets this amazing kind of firm texture, like a firm fish, like a monkfish type thing. That was really good. One of the kind of side effects out there of not having wood to burn is that they can't evaporate seawater to create salt. So they either got the salt directly from the sea, like using seawater to cook in or whatever, or from dried seaweed. Obviously, the seaweed's in the sea. When you dry it takes on a really salty. It's packed full of salt. So a lot of the time I was taking dried seaweed with me as well, and just adding it to the dish, which was great. I think one of the most satisfying meals I had was seagull eggs, which I hadn't really factored into my diet at all before I went out. But then, because it's in season, spring coming into summer, and because you're in a kayak, and it's quite easy to stop at these tiny little islands where you can see the seagulls have nested on top, and you go up and you find a nest with a seagull egg in. It's brilliant because they're big, surprisingly big actually. Yeah, they're like almost like goose egg size.
Wow.
And super quick to cook, obviously. So that was a real bonus on any day when it was miserable weather. You go up and you find a nest and you've got 1 or 2 eggs in there. And the trick is not to, when there's 3 eggs in there, that means they've got a clutch and they'll start incubating it. So you don't take any eggs out that have got 3. So 1 or 2 is fine. And, otherwise you also run the risk of cracking it open and there's a beak in it. So,
right. Okay. Right. You're eating like what is balut, right?
which is which is still edible.
Yeah, sure.
But obviously, you want the population not to be diminished. Not that there's much chance of that. Absolutely billions of birds out there, and 57,000 people. So I think there's a long way to go before you have an impact on the bird population.
Interesting. See, that's something I never would have considered. And I'm a big egg guy. I could eat eggs like every day. I love eggs. I love a good egg.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they're like super yolky as well. It's like it's almost like it had an extra yolk in it. It was that rich and deep orange. On Instagram, there's a few videos of me cooking it, but super quick and so tasty, really good. Yeah.
Well, another thing you had mentioned in our previous interview was about some of the hazards you were going to be facing. The sea ice, of course, was one of them. Whales, polar bears. Did you encounter any kind of dangerous situations?
There was a few, but no polar bears, which was great because a lot of the weight that I was carrying was actually either the rifle or the pistol or my polar bear tripwire to go in the tent. Yeah, I was kind of half wanting to see a polar bear, half not.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you want to have seen it, but you don't want to be seeing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. God. Whales were incredible and both frightening and awe-inspiring at the same time. When you hear the of this, a whale blow, and then you look to the left or wherever it was, and it was, often it was like 15 or 20 meters off the side of the kayak, and wow, if that came up underneath me, that would be interesting. And then another thing that I hadn't really factored in was walruses being a danger, which I didn't realize until I got out there. The Greenlandic, they love a good story. The whole history is made up of verbal storytelling, and you can imagine when they've got months of perpetual dark, like they do in the winter in the north. Stories must have been probably the only form of entertainment.
Sure.
So they're really imaginative, and what they loved telling me was all the possible dangers that I might encounter coming up. And walruses apparently are known to attack kayaks, especially red or orange ones, of which of course mine was orange, which is brilliant. So that was another, oh Christ. And I saw one walrus, a great big round brown head just popped out probably about 80 yards off the kayak, because I knew that they could possibly attack kayaks. I did a hard 90 degrees and like paddled as fast as I could towards land just in case it came in and attacked the kayak. That was an interesting one. The sea was there was a couple of stretches where I wasn't going through fjords or through islands, and when it's open sea and the only thing to your west is Canada, like a couple of 100 kilometers or so away. The sea can be pretty dangerous. There was a few moments I didn't capsize at any point, but there was a few moments when I was thinking, this is probably about the limit of my skill set now. Just constantly bracing with the paddles, when you kind of lose your balance, and you've always got to look out. Something that I hadn't really experienced before was the difference between the waves and the swell, which can be coming in different directions. Sometimes you've got like short choppy waves coming at you from your back right, and then from the back left you've got these bigger swells that are coming, and it's quite disorienting, and you have to be almost eyes in the back of your head not to be taken unexpectedly. So that was interesting. The sea ice was really interesting actually, because in the south, the first couple of 100k was going through quite thick ice that had broken up quite a lot, and it was almost like paddling through a great big slushy at some points. But then in the far north, where it had just broken up and hadn't been broken up so much, there was huge, like football field size chunks of ice, totally flat, that must hundreds of thousands of tons. And again, the Greenlandic, bless them, they enjoyed telling me about, nearly everyone's had an uncle who'd lost his legs in a kayak because the ice had crushed together, and you can really see it when you're paddling through it. You can see an open channel and you're going through it, and then suddenly it's closing on you. You think, oh crikey, there's no way I can move any of that ice.
Right.
So you'd have to pop the skirt, jump up onto the ice, and pull the kayak up. So that was quite an eye opener as well. Really, really interesting. And it's amazing how the ice has different currents. Underneath the water, it can be totally flat, and often the ice kind of deadens the ocean anyway, so it's not often choppy or wavy when there's loads of sea ice. But you can be looking out, and there's one bunch of ice moving quite rapidly towards the east, and then right next to it can be the same size ice again moving to the west. It's just like you all move together, but there's local channels going around, which makes it even more interesting trying to negotiate.
Gosh. Yeah, I guess the one thing people think about when they think of like icebergs is that they're just so much bigger underneath the water than they are in the top. I just never considered how that would be affected by the currents.
It's amazing. And the sea ice is generally flatter as well, because icebergs carve off glaciers, so they're huge, great chunks, whereas the sea ice is frozen sea, so it's pretty flat. So you can see for a long way, but it's amazing that from when you're a distance away, you just see a mass expanse of white and think, oh, holy hell, how am I going to get through that? And you get closer and it starts breaking up and you can see different channels. It's really interesting, really, really interesting. But I stayed quite close to land because my GPS screwed up a bit as well, and often couldn't find a satellite, which surprised me. I thought, space was full of the things, but apparently not. So for the last 5 or 6 days, my GPS didn't work at all. Luckily, I just had to keep the land to my right.
Just keep Greenland over here and you know where you are.
But then if the sea ice is thick and you have to kind of paddle out to sea, it was getting misty a lot of the time as well. So the GPS would have been handy in those points.
Well, what are some of the most memorable moments that you had out there?
The most dramatic was I was in a storm. This was probably about halfway through, and my data had run out on the phone. So my weather app, instead of saying you got no data, just was on a loop of the previous day. So when I was going forward for 3 days, looking back, I was a complete idiot and thought, that's really strange that the weather hasn't changed at all for 3 days.
Right.
And then I got out there and camped, and then it was just absolute gay. You could barely stand up. I had to put loads of rocks around the outside of the tent, and I inverted the kayak and put it in the front just to kind of act as a wind deflector, so the tent wasn't getting smashed about too much. But then about 2 a.m. on the second night, the storm lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. I was stuck in the tent, and I was half deaf by the end of it because the tent was shaking about so much, making so much noise. On the second night, the wind picked up the kayak, which had some kit in it. Must have weighed about 40 kilo. Smashed it through the tent, broke the central pole, gashed my eye, and then by the time I realised what was happening, got out. The kayak was like 15 meters up a hill. It was absolutely incredible. Yeah. So luckily the kayak was okay. The tent was smashed. I had to tape my spare paddles together and prop it up on the inside of the tent. And luckily on the third day, the weather just died and I managed to get out. But it was one of those moments where you feel pretty safe and you're in a tent, nice and dry, and then suddenly, boom, it changes like that. And the tent dropped on me. There's a blizzard outside. Tent dropped on all my gear. Sleeping bags instantly wet. Everything was it was horrible.
Because you have to just be adaptable and flexible in situations like that, right? To be able to respond to whatever happens.
Yeah, and it really makes you, because a lot of places where I camped as well were quite shallow and natural places where to land a kayak. Yeah. So often there were you could see circles of rocks where the Inuit had been using them as camps for centuries, thousands of years. During the storm, there was a stone circle about 5 yards behind my tent, and you can imagine it really brought home to you how bloody difficult it is to survive in that kind of environment. And there's me with all my Gore-Tex and GPS and satellite phone. But these guys, they had to catch seal, use the seal skin to be a shelter for them, as well as food.
Right.
You can see why there's stories of whole settlements starving to death because during a storm that lasts, if they haven't got enough dried food or anything in stock, there's no way you can fish or hunt or even get out of the tent. So it was a real testament to how tough these people must have been and still are. In that kind of environment. And it's not until you're actually in it really, like I say, it really brings it home. But on the flip side, the most amazing experiences I had were the generosity and how friendly the Greenlanders were. They're absolutely incredible the whole way through. Because I managed to get a bit of publicity before I went. And because they're so remote, they rely a lot on Wi-Fi, so social media channels and the national news. Everyone watches national news. And the night before I left, yeah, I was on the news featuring this Englishman who's going to go kayaking up Greenland, eating only Greenlandic food. Following that, everyone knew about my live tracker on the map on my website, so they were following me. And so every single settlement I arrived into, there was a welcome party, waving Greenlandic flags,
Oh,
having
fun.
food for me after a long paddle, or if you've gone 6 or 7 days just wild camping and without seeing a single other human, to have people there welcoming you and giving you a bag of food was unbelievable. And it made it so much easier to get a bed for the night. And the Greenland people were phenomenally generous, and I can't thank them enough. It really, really touches your heart just to think back on it and how lovely they actually were.
So what about the scientific side of your expedition? Have you gotten the results back from your data you collected?
Yeah, so there were two separate scientific things from myself, apart from the microplastic stuff with the seals. There was one that was, I had a whole bunch of tests done in London the day before I left, and then exactly the same tests when I got back. And that measured, that was a DEXA scan to measure bone density, bloods, urine, stool samples, height, weight, all that kind of stuff. And so bear in mind, for that 95 days, I hadn't eaten a single piece of fruit, single piece of vegetable, no carbs, just meats, fat, fish, seabirds or seabird eggs. And then I lost 13 kilos, so 2 stone. What's that, 26 pounds, about that, in the first 4 weeks of paddling, which was, I was 90 kilo and I dropped down to 75 within 4 weeks, which was the first time I managed to find a pair of scales to measure myself, which was worrying because I thought that's a big load of weight to lose that quickly. And if I continued on that kind of downward weight loss trend, at some point I'm going to crash because I'll have used up all my fat reserves. So I was kind of worried about that, but it just bottomed out and just leveled off and stayed the same for the rest of the expedition, which was another 50 days, which I hadn't changed my diet or anything like that. It was a natural thing. So that was the most dramatic difference initially. But then when I got back and they did the tests, the big takeaways for it were I lost 10% body fat. So I went from 26% down to 15% body fat, which scientists were quite amazed at. And also my cholesterol levels halved.
You would think with so much meat and fat, it would be the other way around.
Yeah, it was incredible. And a lot of the results I got back were like super high tech. You have to be some kind of expert to understand what they're talking about. But they simplified it for me. And then they said basically you went from a reasonably healthy position into that class that we actually call an athlete. So I've never been called that before. So that was absolutely incredible. And, as a chef who's been trained in the States and Europe, Australia, New Zealand, the whole Western narrative is animal fats are bad, vegetable fats, margarine, eat that. It's really good for you. 5 a day, eat that, just stay away from, anything animal is really bad for you. Yeah. And it just turns out not to be the case at all. In fact, I prospered, physiologically, huge amounts from eating this pretty much all animal and high fat diet. I was kind of hoping that would happen because obviously the Inuit have been doing it for thousands of years and they haven't had planes flying, rubbish Western processed food in for most of that time. So I suspected that might be the case, but I never dreamed that it would be as dramatic as it has. Looking at the blood markers as well, which again goes into doctor territory, they were amazed at the results. All the good stuff was amplified and the bad stuff had been reduced. So it was an absolutely incredible expedition. But obviously it was married with the extreme physical duress as well. So what we're talking about now is doing a similar project where I go out there, eat the same food, live in a peat hut, so you're exposed to like a lot more of the bacteria, same as I would have done in a tent, I guess, but taking out the physical element just to see and do exactly the same tests just to see what impact that physical. Obviously it would have had a big impact because I was kayaking for between 6 and 10, 12 hours a day the whole way. On the physical side, I was hoping to do 30 kilometers a day on average. And then towards the end, I was hitting 60, 70, and my best was 85 kilometers in one stretch, which, for an old boy is, I was pretty impressed with.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, what's next? I know you mentioned that you had this idea for going out to the peat hut, but what other kind of adventures, what other expeditions or experiments or projects are on your radar?
Yeah, this is really kind of given me the bug to go out and find out more about indigenous diets. And more you think about it, that we've evolved for, say 1 million years, eating and foraging and hunting stuff that is within a walking radius or a hunting radius of where we are. And it's only in the last couple of generations that we've flipped that on its head, and we're flying stuff all around the world out of season. It's been pumped full of antibiotics and fertilizers and chemicals that are effectively killing us. And that's coincided with humans being in a time when we've never been less healthy. Diabetes, autoimmune disease, heart disease, allergies. Everything is skyrocketing at the moment. And in my mind, it's 100% to do with the diet and what we're eating. We've got to take it back to how our ancestors lived and cutting out all this processed food, so keeping it as near to its natural state as we can. I've got a whole bunch of different things on the go. I'm experimenting with fermenting. Fermentation is essentially controlled rotting, but then I've been really interested in seeing where the line is between fermented and actual rotten food, with maggots in it and stuff like that. And is that actually bad for us? So I've been doing experiments where I've been fermenting meat and letting maggots get into it, no salt or anything like that, because there's loads of anecdotes about humans and tribes and indigenous peoples eating meat that's fly blown, it's got maggots all through it, and it hasn't been preserved, hasn't been frozen, it's in the tropics, it hasn't necessarily been in the Arctic, and they're eating it. It's like rotten roadkill. And I've eaten quite a lot of that now, and I haven't got ill from it, touch wood.
Wow.
So it seems like there isn't a line between how extreme you can take
That's
it, which is
interesting.
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously no doctor. I know that even nowadays they do like maggot therapy. Like if someone has necrotic tissue on their skin, they will actually, put maggots on the skin to allow it to eat the bad, the actual necrotic tissue. So if the maggots are eating the bad stuff, right? I guess what's left is the good stuff, theoretically.
Good stuff, yeah, exactly.
I don't know. That's for me just from hearing your description, but I don't know if that's scientific or not, but that'd be kind of my hypothesis.
No, that's totally true. And there are loads of accounts of, because you think in the Arctic it's going to be cold, so it's almost like keeping it in a fridge. Yeah. But then there are so many accounts of indigenous tribes in the tropics, preferring to rot their meat rather than eat it because of this, the process of fermentation and the bacterial action on it pre-digest the food. Right. So it's exactly the same as the Inuit in the far north. All this bacteria that we've grown up with, and most of our bodies are comprised of bacterial cells. The bacteria are pre-digesting it, releasing all those enzymes and nutrients. So as soon as you eat it, you can absorb it instead of having to work. Your body have to spend all that energy. It just makes total sense. We're talking with a TV production company about going to geographical areas that were pivotal in human existence. So we're talking about East Africa, where the first humans evolved from, looking at fermentation and how they would have eaten there. And then the Fertile Crescent, which 12,000 years ago or so was a lush, verdant land, and where farming first kind of happened. And then across to the Indus Valley in Pakistan, and then the Aleutian Islands between Russia and Alaska, which is where the first peoples would have come into America, and North America, Central and South America, and also Greenland. So the areas where different huge migrations of people would have kind of split off or evolved. So it'd be really super interesting to look at the indigenous diets.
That's fascinating.
And just see, especially like when people first came into South America, where humans first started eating potatoes and tomatoes and tubers like that. What an incredible experiment! So if I can get a TV production company to pay for that and play about eating weird stuff again, it'd be amazing.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But the Aleutian Islands are incredible. There's like 3,000 miles of a whole string of islands right between Russia and America, which I was thinking would make an awesome kayak expedition. So looking at that, but there are a couple of 300 kilometer plus open stretches of water, which is going to take probably 4 or 5 days, if depending on the sea state, to get across. And obviously, there's no land, so I'm looking at some kind of outrigger type thing that can balance the kayak. So if I need a sleep or a rest,
right,
I'm not going to tip over. So I'm playing about with that at the moment. That's a possible one there.
How cool. Right. So on the topic of documenting your adventures, were you able to document your trip here? And if so, where can people learn about that? Where can people see what you've done?
Yeah, I was kind of followed by BBC Radio. BBC Radio 4 here in the UK were doing a kind of wild microbiome project where they had 30 wild food foragers on a wild food only diet for 30 for 3 months, which was really interesting. A few of them couldn't do it, but a few of them did, and they had the same test as me. And then when Dan Saladino, the food journalist who was kind of overseeing it, found out about my trip, we kind of combined the two. And there's been two quite long radio programs here in the UK. I think both the links are on my bio in my Instagram profile. Yeah, the biggest and most interesting one with the results came out on Sunday, so that's very current as well. And also there's a Norwegian documentary film production company called Landmark Films who sent a videographer on 3 or 4 different occasions out there, and plus used all my GoPro and drone footage. And they are creating a documentary. So It's pretty exciting. And the trailer should be out in the next few weeks. It's just private at the moment. And then the actual documentary should be out in March or April next year.
Oh, I'm so excited to see that.
Incredible. Yes. So that's going to be touted out at film festivals. It hasn't been commissioned yet. But hopefully someone will snap it up. So as soon as there's a link or anything I can share on that, I'll pop it up on my Instagram and drop you a line as well.
Please do. Yes, please do.
And as I say, we're in talks with a different production company about doing a 6-part series on all those different places that I mentioned. So
brilliant.
Play touch with that happens. That'd be really interesting.
What was it like being filmed in that way? Was that like nice to have people around? Was it like a little bit distracting, or what was that?
No, that was great, and it wasn't like a lot of these kind of shows. You can see that they've got a big crew behind them.
Yeah.
So every time I look at it, you go, okay, it's great that you're doing that, but you've obviously got a big crew of like 5 or 10 people on a boat next to you, or in a Land Rover driving next to you as you cycle or whatever. But this one was, literally just one videographer who hired a boat or filmed from the land as I was going past. And it was great because, like I said before, everything gets wet instantly. And trying to take a picture, on the phone when your hands are remotely clammy or wet at all is impossible. Just trying to get this stupid thing to work. And also operating a camera or drone by yourself, you have to take your gloves off. It's quite a pain in the backside to do that. So to have a professional do it, and it's and obviously someone that you recognize as soon as you see them after going 4 weeks without seeing them. It was great. It was a real nice bit of reassurance. Nice. And obviously their photos and footage are going to be way better than the stuff that I take.
Wow.
That's really cool. It was really interesting as well to see the perspective of me from someone else's eyes. Like a couple of the kayak shots they got in rough water was, oh God. Whereas when you're actually in it, you're just in it. You don't really appreciate how bad it looks or how good it looks from the inside. So it was really interesting to get that kind of third-party perspective. Yeah.
After you'd been eating this traditional diet for so long, was there anything that you missed? Any foods you just started craving, or what was the first thing you wanted to eat when you got home?
Donuts and coffee. I didn't have coffee either for the whole time. I was just drinking water. So I don't binge on rubbish food or sugars or even donuts. But for some reason, I was just thinking a jam donut and a coffee was just in my head the whole time. When you're kayaking between headlands and it's going to take 2 or 3 hours and the land doesn't get any closer, and you just check your watch and it's like, oh my God, someone's moving the land further away. It just doesn't get closer. You have a lot of time to think out there. So donuts and coffee were a big one. As soon as I hit that when I got back, that was amazing. So nice. But I didn't go crazy, and because I felt so healthy, kind of for the first time in my life, I was really unsure about what to eat, because coming back to England, you're surrounded by processed foods and all this kind of rubbish. It would have been really easy just to go a bit nuts, and I kind of went back onto my normal diet, which was like carbs, fruit, and veg. But now I've kind of reverting back to that kind of Greenlandic style where it's I hardly eat any carbs. So the carbs I do eat are usually my own sourdough bread, so it's been fermented, which is way healthier than the processed rubbish. Spaghetti, rice, all that kind of stuff. I feel really guilty when I eat it now because I know that it's going to be piling the weight back on. Well, one of the reasons anyway. So I'm hitting the gym quite hard. So it's kind of inspired me to look after myself and made me so much more aware of where my food's coming from and what's in it. Yeah. I'm reading the label on everything now. And yeah, as soon as you start doing that, it's really depressing just looking at all the crap that goes into our food for no reason. Like I make all my own bread now. And even the traditional loaves that you buy in the supermarket, they've got like 15 or 20 ingredients in. It's like flour, salt, and water. That's all you need. Let the natural bacteria and yeast act as your rising agent. Yeah, you just really look at all the rubbish that we eat and just look around to see how unhealthy humans in general are, and how much of a crisis every single healthcare system across the world is in. Just because people are getting sicker and sicker, and relying more on a fix after the bad thing has been happening because of you've been eating bad diet for 20 years. So I'm not become a diet evangelist. I'm not telling people what to eat, but just question what you are eating and think, okay, the whole of human evolution has brought us to this point. What were we eating for the vast majority of that time?
Yeah, until like 100 years ago.
Yeah. It's just crazy, and it kind of, there's so many messages and signals and different channels, social media and news. Increasingly more so now. You don't know who to believe. You don't know if it's fake news or anything like that. So we've just got to cut all that kind of static out and bring it back to a commonsensical way of looking at it. Is this a food that humans would naturally eat? If it's yes, then great, go for it. If it's no, then don't eat it. Just don't try not to compromise. And it's difficult, and I'm as guilty as anyone else. It's great to pick up a candy bar or whatever, but I haven't done that for a while. But it is super easy, and that whole sugar craving that humans have comes from our natural instinct to eat fruit, which is the sugar, which gives us instant energy and that kind of stuff. But it's kind of been hijacked by globalism, capitalism, and companies trying to make money on the bottom line. So go for fruit or honey or something more natural. It's it's a minefield out there, and even for myself, who's been exposed to it and knows probably a little bit more about it than a lot of people, it's really difficult. And a lot of the time it raises more questions than it answers as well, the more you look into it. So you just got to kind of cut out all that crap and focus back onto, is it natural? Is it a natural food? And in somewhere like Greenland, it's really easy to see what would have been the natural diet, because it's barren. There's nothing on the land. It's just what's in the sea pretty much, or flying in the air. Whereas in the West, it's been so long since we have foraged or hunted in our immediate environment that the knowledge has been lost. And also it's been blurred by the supermarkets. Like even looking out here from a window here in England, there's loads of trees, there's orchards, there's fields full of wheat, but you go to the supermarket and most of it has been really highly mucked about with, processed so that most of the nutrients have been lost, full of antibiotics and chemicals. But just despite that being the case, and that supermarkets and modern life has kind of blurred that whole line, you just got to keep thinking, is this a natural thing? Should I be eating stuff that's been flown 12,000 miles around the world? Probably not. Can I replace it with something from a farmer's market or from the supermarket that has come from the local area? And chances are yes will be the answer.
Well, fantastic. Mike, is there anything else you'd like to talk about on the show? Do you have any other stories, advice, anything you'd like to share?
One thing is that I only started kayaking 4 years ago, and I'm not an expert kayaker. And going on this journey, you can be really easily intimidated, because obviously you get into the sea kayaking world, and it's really easy to get intimidated by these experts who post these amazing Instagram pictures and look like they're Olympic class kayakers, and to think, I can't do that because I'll never be as good as them. I'm not super confident. I can just about do a roll, in the kayak. And the thing is don't be put off by too much social media, trawling through and looking at and comparing yourself to other people. Obviously don't go and take silly risks. I had sat phones, personal beacons and all this kind of stuff, and I had the base skill to do it. But there's no reason why you can't attempt anything you want to attempt. I haven't got loads of money. I maxed out 2 credit cards and I'm still paying it off, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world. There's always a way to do it. And rather than dreaming about it, actually, to take a few tentative first steps into doing an expedition or something that you've always wanted to do, and you'll find out that actually it's not as difficult as you think. And sure, there's going to be obstacles, but just go for it. Because looking back on what I've achieved over the last year, I'm quite proud of what I've done, and the tests and the positive results and the feedback from people who have been inspired by what I've done. And I'm no Olympic athlete. I'm nothing special. I'm just a normal bloke who went out and did it. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed and pretty proud of myself for that.
Amazing. Well, Mike, where can people find you? Where can people have a look at your pictures and see what you're up to and see what you're up to next?
Yep. My Instagram is probably the best one and more up to date, and it's got loads of links on the bio, on the profile, and the Instagram is at Mike Keen Cooks, MikeKeen Cooks. My website, I'm also in the process of updating. I'm constantly doing that, and it's www.mikekeen.co. That's the main one. Yeah, get either of those two will take you to as much information as you can stomach or want.
Great. Well, definitely do let me know when the trailer for the documentary is out. I'm really excited to see that, and we'll put links to that in our website as well when that's available.
Oh, brilliant.
And just keep me posted on what you're up to next. We would love to have you back on anytime you've got an adventure to share. Standing invitation. So just shoot me an email, and I'd be delighted to talk to you again anytime. It's always great to have another exciting adventure to hear about.
Cool. Okay, thanks so much, Mike.
Wonderful.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Very inspiring. So, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes.
Can't wait to hear what you are up to next.
We're on to our next segment. We say it's our favorite segment. They're all my favorite segments.
Yeah, I don't know why we say that. We just started doing that.
I don't know. It makes us sound like talk showy, I think.
Yeah.
Even though this would be a terrible talk show. Could you imagine? So this one, it's not really an adventure news. It's not really funny news. Michael, you and I grew up in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah.
Home of many wonderful sports teams.
Well, the Dallas Cowboys, lest you forget, they're not in Dallas. So
nope, they're not. Home of the Dallas Jackals professional rugby team, and home of the new World Series champion Texas Rangers.
Honestly, James, I couldn't believe it.
I never thought it would happen.
Growing up,
I never thought.
They were just the most, they weren't
averages.
The worst.
They were really bad for a long time.
Yes.
And then they were really good for a little bit.
And a couple of years ago, they got very close.
In 2010 and 2011, they went back-to-back World Series. Horrible. It felt so bad. The first time when you go, it's the first time you've ever been. We got whooped. It's
you're just
fine.
Happy to be there.
You're
like,
happy
we
to be
finally
there.
made it. Yeah.
The second time, it doesn't feel good. 12 years later, we finally win.
I woke up the next morning and I just opened Facebook, and just like literally everyone on there was just posting pictures of the Rangers logo.
Like I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I was so nervous.
If you're from a place like New York, if you're a fan of a team that's always just been good, right, you might not understand what a big deal this is. But for someone from Arlington, Texas, that's been a lifelong fan of the Rangers since the 90s and has gone to baseball games and watched the Rangers,
They used to give you tickets for $2.
Yeah.
Because no one wanted to go.
$2 and like you still got like a free hat when you showed up.
Yeah. It was like $2. You get a free bobblehead and you go, it's $2 and $1 hot dog night. You're you're in and out of the baseball game for like $18.
Like a discounted lemon chill.
Oh yeah. It's so good. Those after seventh inning lemon chills when they're half price. Delicious.
A lot of good memories of the old stadium. Never been to the new one.
Oh yeah. Never have. Maybe one day. I don't know. I don't live there anymore. So it's hard. Now I live in an area with the other really not great team. Shout out to the Rockies. Y'all are bad. But anyway, just wanted to give them a shout out.
It's just
if
surreal.
any of them are listening, congratulations. I don't think you are, but congratulations. Bruce Bochy, if you're listening, congratulations, man. But anyway, just wanted to use my slot to give them a shout out. It's a very big deal. I vividly remember watching the World Series in 2011, and they just blew it. They just choked. That sits over you.
That's the way baseball goes, James.
It is the way baseball go. Miss Ron Washington.
Which is another Rangers meme, if you will.
Anyway, enough about baseball. It's boring enough as it is, and I like baseball, and I'm the first to say it's boring.
Remember that time that we took my wife to see the Rangers? And you and I were like, we love baseball. We're like, baseball is our favorite sport. We love going to baseball games. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to love it. We got there, 9th inning, 0-0. We finally just left.
Yeah. It was the worst game to possibly bring someone to try and like get into the sport.
Yep.
Yeah, 0-0. I think that game went to like 12 innings.
We left at the 9th. We were just like, you know what? This isn't.
We're like, you know what? This is not. I don't need a lot of offense, but like something. Yeah. But anyway, congratulations, Texas Rangers. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review. 5 stars if you're feeling generous, but honesty is better than flattery. If there's something you want to hear us talk about, send us a message. You can find us at attemptadventure.com. Click that little contact us button. Mm-hmm. You can also email us directly, hello@attemptadventure.com. Goes to the same place. I would recommend the website because there you can also kill some time looking at show notes, articles, general good stuff. Thank you again, everybody, and until next time, keep adventuring.